family rumor.
My guess would be that he fought for the Confederacy.
He unearths a beloved relative who tumbled from prosperity to poverty.
I did not expect you to meet that end.
Whose desperate measures and tragic downfall shake Noah to the core.
I could not bear of committing the deed under my dear loved one's eyes. Holy moly. Angelino, third generation, growing up literally in Hollywood. I think just growing up here was a profound influence. I started acting in my sophomore year in high school. I did a few shows. I kind of half-assed my college application process, wanting to start right out of high school, so I did. But everybody went to college in my family, and I'm the first, I believe, in generations not to go to college. So one of the things I like about acting is it gives you a freedom to have an ongoing education in all sorts of different areas. So I think I appeased their anxiety by saying, I'm going to continue to learn, and I'm making money. In the early 90s, I got a little part in A Few Good Men that was sort of significant because it was a credible piece of film that I think got me into a lot of other rooms.
Right back here.
I've had 20 some odd years as an actor. I really love that. I've always enjoyed working in an ensemble. But I've also started writing and directing. I like it a lot. I think I've been very lucky in a lot of ways. I was born at Cedars of Lebanon Hospital in Hollywood, June 4th, 1970. My mother's name is Marjorie, and she was Marjorie Ann Lear. My dad's name is Frank Stephen White, but he goes by Stephen, and his parents. My grandparents were kind of movers and shakers in Los Angeles. My grandfather, Frank Wiley, and my grandmother, Edith Wiley. They were the family that was here. My mother's family, mother being from Kentucky, they were there. When I was young, we would go to Kentucky, or they would come to California for extended visits. My maternal grandparents were Alexander Burns Spear and Marjorie Mills, who was my grandmother. Education is something that's very important to my family. And well, history was always a class that I excelled in school. History did come alive for me. Like, I could see the inherent drama in it. But the first period of history that I think I was really interested in was probably the Civil War. Having family that was in the South, I was curious to know what we had done, how we had participated. And my uncle, Cindy, who passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately, had been sort of the genealogist on my mom's side. And I had asked years and years ago, how did our family serve in the Civil War? And he told me that it was fairly commonplace for people of means to pay for somebody else to serve in their place. And that we had taken advantage of that. And I remember feeling a sort of sense of like, ooh, really? Oh, that's sort of disappointing. Now I'm 45. I'm kind of looking at the second half of my life and looking back at the first half, and it feels incredibly syncretic and appropriate to have a better understanding of things that have only been vague up until now. People are very complicated. I don't necessarily think a noble act makes a noble, nor do I necessarily think an egregious act makes a terrible. And so I'm curious to sort of, I don't know, come as close to an objective truth about a relative as I could get. You know, that isn't just a two-dimensional graph and a fourth-generation anecdote. I'm curious about my mom's side of the family because currently there are a few members in it to tell those stories, and to have a clear understanding of that line to give to my kids seems pretty significant. So I'm going over to my mom's place to find out what she knows about her side of the family. Should be a good jump-off point for my journey.
Hey,
Hello.
how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, I'm great. Nice to see you.
And you?
Come on in. I found a picture that your Uncle Sandy gave me of my mother's family. And this picture right here is my mom, Marjorie Mills, your grandmother, when she was a baby.
When was this photograph taken?
This was way back because my mom was born in 1916. She was about a year old there. So it's probably taken about 1970. And these are her parents, George Pemberton Mills and Margaret Mills. They are my grandparents, your great-grandparents.
Oh, my goodness. I don't think I've ever seen this picture.
I don't think you have either. And this is Granddaddy's mother and father, Marie Pemberton and George W. Mills.
So this is my great-great-grandfather.
Yeah, right.
Where's this picture taken?
This picture is taken in Lexington, Kentucky at Emily Farm.
Did you spend a lot of time with them? Yeah.
I did.
And you never knew his parents?
But I never knew his parents. His father was named John Henry Mills.
John Henry.
He was born, I think Sandy told me, 1843
Oh, okay.
in New York. Then he was married to a woman named Mary Emily Brown. And they married in 1863
Where?
in Summit, Mississippi.
They got married in 1863?
Yeah.
Right in the middle of the Civil War. So I've gotten all the way back to my 3 times great-grandfather, John Henry Mills, who was around 18 years old when the Civil War broke out in 1861. And even though he was originally from New York, he got married in Mississippi in 1863. So I'm wondering if he served in the Civil War, and if so, on which side? But Uncle Sandy had always told me when I asked him about the Civil War and whether our family had served, he thought maybe we had taken advantage of that option available to people of means to have somebody serve in your stead. You could pay somebody to do your military service for you.
That's a part I've never heard. Shall we look it up
Yeah,
somewhere?
let's look it up.
Okay. Let's look on Ancestry and see what we can find.
Census?
Uh-huh. And let's try the U.S. federal census. Let's check.
What year?
Well, let's try the 1860 census, right before the Civil War,
Okay.
and see where they all are then.
Check the 1860 census.
John Mills. Sandy said he was born 1843.
Born in New York. There we go. Search.
Okay. Oh, look.
Ah, John H. Mills, Baton Rouge, East Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Baton Rouge.
Oh. Birth year, about 1842, birthplace, New York, gender male. That's him.
I had no idea that we had relatives from Louisiana.
I didn't either. And, there it is. There it is, John H. Mills. 18 years old, male. Clerk, born in New York. And
In the household.
that's the only person listed. So if he did serve in the Civil War, he would have joined up theoretically from a Louisiana regiment.
Yeah. I'd be curious to see if he did serve.
Where do we go from here? So the last place that we know
Lived.
in 1860
60 was Baton Rouge.
Louisiana.
Maybe you should go and try to see what you can find out there.
Baton Rouge, here I come. Got my notebook? I think that this journey could very well answer the question I want to know about was whether or not I had any Civil War veterans in my family.
What'd you find? Okay.
I will. My guess would be if John Henry did fight, that he fought for the Confederacy. You know, I don't really have any misgivings about whether he fought for the North or the South. At that time, everybody decided, and it really kind of regional specific about which you took. And were people who fought to maintain the history of slavery. There were people who were fighting on more sort of narrowly defined set of circumstances to declare rights more valuable sort of federal imposed law. And so maybe he fought for those reasons. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. Here I am in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm hoping that at Louisiana State Archive, they may have kind of enrollment records for military service. Hello.
Hi.
No.
Nice to meet you, Justin.
Pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to answer my questions. So, my great-great-great-grandfather, John Henry Mills, according to the 1860 census of Louisiana, he was an 18-year-old man living here in Baton Rouge, working as a clerk.
Okay.
My question was about his military service and whether he served in the Civil War or not.
Right. In fact, I found some information. It's on this reel if you want to go ahead and take a look.
Okay. Just
So you thread it through to the side. You got it. Okay.
This is header.
Okay,
Okay,
stop
here we
there.
go. Compiled service records of Confederate soldiers who served in organizations from the state of Louisiana.
Yeah, this is something called compiled service records. They were created in the early 1900s to track Civil War soldiers and any papers related to them. But if you see, too, it mentions what
the
unit.
Crescent Regiment, infantry L through Q.
Right, so this says all soldiers L through Q, so you can keep scanning to look for Mills.
Well, these were individual
Yeah, so it's
registration cards.
Exactly. It's each individual soldier.
This is cool.
Okay.
Mills. Look at that. How
Yeah,
about
go
that?
back just here.
It's like
This
it's
is
a
the-
gas pump, but I hit right to it. J.H. Mills, no? The Company H,
Right.
Crescent Regiment, Louisiana Infantry. Confederate. Private. So he did. He enlisted as a private
That's
in
right.
the Confederate Army here in Louisiana. Wow. Interesting.
Let's go on to the next one.
Mills, John H. Mills, appears on a muster roll of the organization named above, order into the service of the state of Louisiana for March 5th, 1862. Where? Is that N.O. New Orleans?
Right.
For a period of 90 days.
Right.
Is that a 90-day enrollment?
Right.
There was an
Or-
expectation that 90 days service would have been sufficient, and then he would have gone back to his job.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Let's see, he was 18 in 1860, so he would have been 20 when he enlisted.
So there's some interesting clues here. This unit is referred to as a militia. So the Crescent Regiment is actually a special unit raised as sort of a home guard in New Orleans.
Interesting.
They're known as the kid glove unit because most of the members were seen as the elites of New Orleans. So if you're a clerk, you're sort of part of this middle class, this white collar class in the South. So that tells you something that he's part of the educated, no doubt, population in New Orleans.
You think of a clerk as being from the educated class. That's interesting.
Certainly at this time, right. But also it's a unit that has no experience in battles.
Interesting. Do you know if he was ever in combat?
So we know that he enlists March 5th, and it's almost exactly a month later that he's in the Battle of Shiloh, one of the largest and bloodiest battles of the Civil War.
Wow.
In 862, the Confederate Army clashed with Union soldiers at the notorious Battle of Shiloh in Tennessee. Over 40,000 Confederate soldiers, including John Henry Mills, launched a surprise attack against the Union Army in an attempt to stop their advance on a key railroad junction, which provided access to New Orleans, Mobile, Memphis, and the Gulf of Mexico. After 2 days of savage combat, General Grant's Union Army prevailed, resulting in over 23,000 casualties. The Battle of Shiloh was the bloodiest conflicts of the Civil War.
So a lot of these men, not just the Crescent Regiment, are amateurs. So it had to be absolutely frightening for him and for his fellow soldiers.
Would this type of enrollment have been voluntary, or would this have been something you would have been pressed into?
Well, so there's no draft yet. So he's not forced to join, but it's a great question as far as what's motivating him.
So I'm fascinated by this because since John Henry was born in New York, it seemed odd to me that he would have served for the South.
We know he's been living in the South. It's not clear how long. I would guess that he felt that this was his home now. He also, the fact that he was a clerk in Baton Rouge, not far, of course, from New Orleans. New Orleans is the center of the slave trade. There's a good chance that whatever he was doing as a clerk had some tie to slavery and the larger economy of the United States.
Right.
And that, of course, is a key reason for
His
men to
economic
join.
livelihood.
His economic livelihood. So he comes to service within the Crescent Regiment in 3 months.
Okay. So I'm fascinated by this because this is kind of cool to find out that he had enlisted and had served and may have fought at the Battle of Shiloh. I was diametrically opposed to the impression I'd been given, that he paid someone to fight for him. So, is there anything else here on John Henry Mills?
No, as far as Louisiana goes, this is all we have. Do you know much more than about where he's going to end up?
I know that in 1863, he married Mary Emily Brown in Summit, Mississippi.
Right, so you probably need to go to Mississippi to find out the next chapter.
Thank you very much. This was very enlightening. It's like dream come for me. History buff, interested in my family, just completely spun my head around about a misconception I had about our military service during the Civil War. The trail kind of went cold as far as his military service goes. And so far, I don't know that much beyond just sort of broad stroke facts. So this is who I am. And this is what makes me tick, would be the ideal find. So I am off to investigate the next place that I know he lived, which was Mississippi. I'd love to see a photograph, a letter, just something to give three-dimensionality and a tactile feeling to his life would be very cool. I called my kids last night. They're very excited, sort of following me on this journey. Somebody asked me how I felt about John Henry having served for the Confederates, and I thought, you know, who knows what his motive was for joining. Maybe it was because he joined with his buddies, maybe it's because of his politics, maybe it was because it was tied to his economic interests, or maybe his wife-to-be interests, who knows. It was kind of fun to try to fill in the blanks. Maybe I'll uncover something that sort of steers that ship in a more direct direction.
Well, I've been doing some research, trying to find some documents on him, but I did want to show you something first.
Wonderful. Oh, boy. Is that him?
Yes, that's him.
That's John Henry Mills, huh? Hello, Henry. You look nothing like I expected to. Wow, look at that face.
See any family resemblance?
There's something about it that seems familiar for sure. Interesting. They could have played bass for ZZ Top, you know?
Yeah, I get that.
He has my grandfather's high forehead. Fascinating.
It's dated, so I don't know when it's from.
That's okay. I can see his face. Pretty special. What else were you able to find?
Well, I do have some newspaper articles that talk about him.
Oh, interesting.
So if you want to start with one of these.
Definitely.
This is from his local paper.
The Summit Sentinel, January 19th, 1899.
Mm-hmm. And so down here, there is an article talking about him.
Efficiency and faithfulness rewarded. Captain J.H. Mills, after 24 years occupancy of the city treasury ship, was again unanimously elected by the city council at its last meeting. Honoring this faithful and impartial officer meets the approval of every citizen of our town. 24 years is a long time, and that anyone could so continuously retain the high regard and esteem in which our treasurer is held speaks more than words can convey of his high character and popularity. Wow. So he served as treasurer. And now it sounds like he was an upstanding member of society. Now let me look at your face again. Now that's exactly what I see.
Responsibility.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
Honest. Moral. So 24 years at this point puts him starting his treasuring tenure at 1875.
Correct.
Which makes perfect sense. Since the last evidence I saw of him was in 1862, when he was a 2-year-old soldier. And he retained the rank of captain.
In all likelihood, an honorary title. We have no evidence he was ever promoted.
Fiscally responsible, obviously. He sounds like somebody that was held in very high esteem and trusted. What strata of society would treasurer occupy? Is that high end of the civil service, or is that considered town elite?
I would put him as a town elite, but certainly within the local community, he is a prominent importance in.
Okay, need some more.
Okay. I have another newspaper article from 1904.
Wow. Sorry, it's going to take me a second just to get past the headline.
Yes.
Holy moly. Wow. He took his own life.
Yes.
Captain John H. Mills blew out his brains because he could not pay premium. He committed suicide at the Lawrence house in Jackson shortly before midnight Saturday night. The body was found a few hours later by a police captain from New Orleans, with the head lying on a blood-soaked pillow and a .38 caliber revolver still clasped in his right hand. It seems Mills went to Jackson with the purpose of killing himself, and it is evident that he had been contemplating the deed for several days but did not desire to commit it at home. The following letter, written by the dead man and dated 9:30 o'clock, was found on the table. Quote, with a premium coming due on a large life insurance policy, I cannot meet, and being financially embarrassed, be hope of immediate reprieve, resolved to take my life in order to protect my family and friends. I left home to end my life because I could not bear the thought of committing the deed under my dear love's eyes. May God, who rules the universe, forgive as far as possible my act. John H. Mill. Holy moly. John Henry. I did not expect you to meet that end. That's amazing. Captain Mills was a brave, fearless, and faithful Confederate soldier, having entered the ranks in New Orleans, the first of the war, and serving till its close, when he settled in Summit and resided here continuously until his deplorable end. He leaves his heartbroken wife and daughter and 4 sons, all of whom were present at the funeral. Never was a man more devoted to his family. Their happiness and comfort was his first consideration, and his love for them was as beautiful as it was great. That's a beautiful phrase. His wife and children almost idolized him. Captain Mills was formerly one of the wealthiest citizens in the southern part of the state, owning large property interests and being identified with several financial enterprises. But business reverses had swept away his entire fortune. The funeral was one of the largest and most imposing that has occurred here in a long while. All the stores in town were closed in honor of the deceased, and the town bell was tolled. The grave in Woodlawn Cemetery was covered with floral tributes of beautiful designs. In his death, a good man has gone, one the whole town will sadly miss. That's so sad. How old was he when he did it?
So he was born in 1843. So he's 61.
61?
Yeah, not old at all.
Wow. Wonder what those business reverses were.
Well, we don't know for sure, but since 1880s or so, the town of Summit has been in decline. There's a good chance he had been investing in a number of opportunities, but they're each failing as they come along. Not uncommon for this time period, not uncommon for the South.
Wonder what that did to the kids. Wonder what that did for his wife. What his legacy was. I mean, there couldn't have been any type of inheritance after that if he was broke, right?
Well, there's a life insurance policy. He probably had a very particular type of policy known as a deferred dividend policy, which were very popular at the time. For these deferred dividend policies, the company would bring a group of policyholders together and put them in a group for 15 or 20 years. And they promoted these as investment policies. No one wants to think about death. I'm not going to die young, but I want to invest in. And so he's a businessman. He would have invested in this. If you lapsed, if you failed to pay a premium, at most you got a very small surrender value. And you didn't, the policy ended at that point.
Oh.
If you survived, if you were one of the ones at the end of 20 years, you split up everything. You get all the built-up dividends from anyone who died, all the premiums from anyone who lapsed. They promoted these as getting a very big payout at the end.
Something kind of pyramid-y about them. From
They are. They're very pyramid-y. And so not being able to pay that premium was actually a very big deal. He was going to lose everything he had been building up for whatever years he had been in that policy.
And suicide didn't nullify the policy, huh?
So interestingly, no. Life insurance at this time had incontestable clauses that once you held a policy for, in this case, it would have been a year, they wouldn't contest a policy for any reason. If you committed suicide, they wouldn't challenge. And so he knew that the policy would pay out. At least some of it will get paid. His wife, law, would be required to receive at least a portion of that life insurance policy. It couldn't go all to debts.
Huh.
So he really felt like this was the one thing he could do to bring money back to the family.
And it says here that he'd been planning that suicide for several days. No, those last couple of days must have been horrible. They were absolutely horrible, walking around keeping up the appearance of absolutely everything being fine and all the while planning all this. It's interesting. I have always thought of suicide as a fairly cowardly act, personally. So it's interesting to try to have to reconcile what seems to be a selfless act. And yet, I think all of his friends and family would agree it was an unnecessary act.
Mm-hmm. And interestingly, these are very controversial. Just a year later, there's going to be a congressional investigation, and they're going to ban these policies. And so in 1905, they become illegal.
So what happened to his wife? I'm afraid to guess.
Well, I did find some records for her.
Confederate pension roll for 1913. Ah, because she was a Confederate widow.
Right. The Union wasn't paying any Confederate pensions. These are all state.
Oh, okay.
So the state would pay these.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. To qualify, you had to prove that you were really poor. This is divided by county. So we can see Pike County.
Listed pensioners in Pike County who are entitled to draw a pension for the year 1913. And there she is, Mary Emily Mills.
So this is 9 years after her husband's death.
How much money was she getting from the pension?
This is kind of a summary, and we can see
$40.30
per year.
per year.
This is well below poverty line. She is pretty destitute.
Wow. Would this have been the only financial aid available to her?
As far as public aid, yes. From my research, she had some property, and she has been selling off property to pay off the debt. She probably had quite a few residual debts from her husband.
Wow. His kids would have been adults by this point.
Yeah, he talks about his daughter and 4 sons, all of them grown.
So I guess her kids weren't taking care of her. If she had to prove that she was destitute enough to qualify for this, she couldn't have been being supported too much by the rest of the family.
You don't know what their financial circumstances were either, though. His from 1904 could also fall on them to alleviate.
Possible. Feels like an O. Henry ending, you know, that he kills himself in order to protect the family's reputation
Right.
and keep them debts at bay, and the exact opposite ends up happening. And here she is, state pensioner. Did she appear in any subsequent pension requests?
She does. She appears every year. The last one I can find is right here.
Chancery Court. This is Harrison County, Mississippi.
Yeah.
complete list of pensioners for the year 1927. And here are the widows. And there she is, Mary Emily Mills. Is this the year you found her on the rolls?
It is the last year I found her on rolls. So what else do you think might have happened to her?
There's more.
Noah Wyle has just learned that after collecting a Confederate pension for years, his 3 times great-grandmother, Mary Emily Mills, dropped off the pension rolls in 1927.
So what else do you think might have happened to her?
I have no idea.
She could have remarried. If she had remarried, that would have likely knocked her off the rolls.
Right.
She could have died.
Hopefully something
She could have moved
positive.
out of state.
Where is she now? She's in Harrison County.
Harrison County.
Where's Harrison?
Harrison County's down on the Gulf, so south of Summit. Summit's in Pike County.
Someone's in Pike County.
Right.
So she moved.
Seems to be that she moved.
So would you recommend going to Harrison County to see what kind of records they have on
I think that's probably your best bet right now.
Harrison County, Mississippi? That's the next spot. John Henry Mills, my great-great-great-grandfather, shot himself and killed himself. Tragic end. So I found myself being very emotionally affected by reading that obituary. I was really saddened to hear how beloved he was, that they shut the town shops and they tolled the church bell during his funeral procession. That kind of public outpouring of grief moved me. So I'd like to find out more about his widow, Mary Emily, who lived much longer and who'd moved from Pike County to Harrison County. So that's where I'll pick up the thread and see what I can find out about her. This morning, driven to Biloxi, Mississippi, to the Jefferson Davis Memorial Library. Here we are. Beauvoir, last home of Jefferson Davis, U.S. Senator and Congressman, President of the Confederacy, built in 1852 to 1854. It has been site of a Confederate veterans' home since 1903.
This was a home for Confederate veterans and their wives and their widows.
Oh, interesting.
And what we've pulled is the file with some records on your great-great-great.
Wow. Mrs. Emmy Mills, wife to J.H. Mills, that's her.
So the first thing we have here are minutes of the board meeting.
1926.
You scan down, go down here.
September meeting. The following applications were approved and handwritten in there. Mrs. Mary Emily Mills of Gulfport, Harrison County. Application was approved on September 10th, same being an emergency case. Oh, wow. Her application was to live here.
Yeah, an emergency base.
Wow. What would have constituted an emergency?
It could have been that she had medical care. There was a huddle here on the grounds. What the emergency would have been, it could have been health. I mean, I know she had a daughter, Carrie, who she'd been living with, so maybe Carrie ran some problems and couldn't take care of her mother anymore. That was usually veterans and widows wound up here, that the families needed help temporarily or they couldn't provide care for.
So this was sort of like a convalescent home, like a home for the aged?
Home for the aged, and in particular, though, the home for the impoverished. I mean, you had to be able to prove that you basically had no other way to be cared for.
Interesting.
Take a look for more.
What's in the envelope? Yeah. Wow. That's her.
There she is.
Look at her.
This is rare. Rarely have I been able to find photographs of the actual residents of the home, and that you see her there with her grandchildren.
These are her grandkids.
These are her grandchildren.
I see a resemblance there for sure, and to other people in my family.
Yeah.
Well, she looks pretty old in that picture. Could be pretty close to the end. She looks tough.
Yeah.
Strong.
Survived a lot.
So, yesterday I found that her name appears on a pension roll from the year 1927. 13, and she was in it until the mid-1920s. And then it...
Right.
Do you happen to know the answer to that?
You want to take a look?
Yes,
Let's
very
start and
much.
see what we found? Okay. Take a look.
Daily Herald, September 29th, 1928. Mrs. M.E. Mills dies. Mrs. M.E. Mills died last night at the Beauvoir Soldiers' Home at the age of 84 years. Mrs. Mills is the widow of the late J.H. Mills, a Confederate veteran who preceded her to the grave a number of years ago. She was a Miss Brown, born in Fort Gaines, Georgia, but has resided in Mississippi for many years, living in Summit, where the family was one of the best known in that section. Mrs. Mills was a gentlewoman of the old school, and in her younger years, her home was rendezvous of the intellectual and social group of the neighborhood. She was of a noble Christian character, a communicant with the Episcopal Church. She is survived by one daughter, Miss Carrie Mills of Gulfport, and three sons, E.H. Mills. Wills? Maybe that's it.
Mills, yeah.
Must be. W. Mills of Lexington, Kentucky. That's my great-great-grandfather.
Okay.
And H.C. Mills of Brookhaven. The remains are at the Ryman Funeral Home on 25th Avenue and will be shipped tomorrow morning to Summit, Mississippi for burial. How about that? A gentlewoman of the old school, and in her younger years, her home was a rendezvous of the intellectual and social group of her neighborhood. So she sounds to be fairly educated and progressive for women of the era.
Certainly, well, I mean, or representative of women who came from a certain amount of wealth in the background, right? Where it wasn't necessarily to be educated to have a profession, but to be educated to be conversational and entertainer, right?
Yes.
Which it sounds like she does, and that she very much enjoyed that type of socializing.
Wow. This was incredibly informative. I mean, started to take on real tan quality now that I can see your face and get some context. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
It's a pleasure.
Indeed.
Here. My great-great-grandmother, Mary Emily Brown Mills, who lived the last 2 years of her life in one of the barrack buildings here. Knowing that she probably was living with other people in a similar situation, I can think of worse ways of ending your life. I can think of a lot better. To live through the war and survive a husband committing suicide and survive a fall from economic grace, certainly, you'd have to be of a certain strong character, fortitude. You know, at the beginning of this journey, I knew I had Southern roots, but I had no idea they ran so deep. I'm just sort of struck by the fact that here I thought I had really no ties to the Civil War at all, and come to find out that, in fact, my great-great-great-grandfather was a veteran for the Battle of Shiloh, and wife lived out her days literally at the epicenter of the post-antebellum period, Jefferson Davis's. Can't closer than that. But the fact that the social safety net to care of the people who had for the Confederates doesn't surprise me, and it was really a good thing, because I don't think they would have received much attention or funds from the North. They had to take care of them, and I don't begrudge them that at all. When it's tied to preservation of a certain romantic notion of the antebellum period, I get a little uncomfortable. The economic engine that it was forced human labor, and that's difficult to reconcile. So today I get to share what I've learned about my ancestors with my mom. She's flown out to meet me so I can tell her everything.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you? Good to see you.
Good trip.
Yes, thanks.
Okay. It's been
Well,
quite a week.
I'm dying to hear about it.
Do you remember where we started?
Well, once we spoke, we were like this.
In terms of the complex characters found them. I've always been embarrassed by the fact that my uncle told me that somebody else fought for us in the Civil War, and I was pretty sure that I would rather have found out that we had relatives that fought for the Confederacy than to find out that we fought at all or that we had had somebody fight for us. And I do feel better to know that Right or wrong, he stood up and served. Would you like to see what he looked like?
I would.
Learning about John Henry's suicide did make me reconsider my notions about suicide, which up until this point I've always viewed as sort of a cowardly act. But here's a guy who says to himself, I've failed family. There's one act that I can commit that will redeem the mistakes I made and put them in a better position than I could ever put them through my own efforts.
Sort of sad, felt he didn't have any other options.
It certainly is. It certainly is. This is Mary Emily, probably in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Oh, yeah. This is fascinating.
It is.
I can't believe how far you went back.
You could find whatever you're looking for in your family. You know, you can find a good story, you can find a bad story, you can find a hero, or you can find a villain. Father George. His father George. Yeah, there's just a wonderful complexity when you start sifting through the past.